Summary: The Light We Carry, Michelle Obama. Book link. Click here. Here is a summary of The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama. The book opens with Michelle Obama reflecting on her father, Fraser Robinson III, who had multiple sclerosis and used a cane and other mobility aids. She discusses how her family accepted and adapted to his disability, though it made them feel vulnerable and different. The book's first part, The Power of Small, discusses starting with small acts of kindness, overcoming fear, and seeing others. The second part, My Kitchen Table, focuses on partnership, her mother Marion Robinson, and connecting with others. The third part, The Whole of Us, examines creating inclusive communities, overcoming divisions, and going high with empathy and moral courage. The book ends with an acknowledgement of her late father. Overall, the memoir shares life lessons and tools for navigating an uncertain world with wisdom, kindness, and hope. It celebrates human connection, and Michelle Obama discusses feeling both cautious and bold as she began writing her new book after publishing Becoming in 2018. She felt vulnerable putting out her personal story and empowered by the project's independence. She grappled with self-doubt and the question, "Am I good enough?" which has followed her throughout her life. Barack Obama reassured her that the book was great and that anxiety was normal when taking on something new and significant. The book tour for Becoming was an affirming experience, with enthusiastic audiences celebrating diversity and connection. The pandemic disrupted the connections and togetherness that the tour highlighted. It left people feeling unsettled, cautious, and less connected. Many experienced for the first time the feelings of being off balance and anxious that marginalized groups face regularly. While the pandemic paused everyday life, other societal problems persisted, like police violence against Black people, hate crimes, intolerance, and authoritarianism. This has made Michelle Obama feel angry, despondent, and shaken. However, she knows she is not alone, as many people try to navigate these obstacles. The key ideas are that putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way can be anxiety-provoking and rewarding. Coming together to celebrate diversity and connection was meaningful before the pandemic disrupted that. Many societal problems have continued through the pandemic, causing a range of difficult emotions. However, many people are also trying to progress on these issues together. The summary is, the author frequently communicates with people who feel different, undervalued or invisible. These people are trying to find their voice and be their authentic self. These people have many questions about creating meaningful connections, speaking up against problems, dealing with difficulties, etc. They are trying to find their power in institutions and structures that must be built for them. This can be confusing and dangerous. The author is often asked for answers and solutions but says there are no formulas or simple solutions for life's big problems. The human experience needs to be simplified. However, the author offers tools and insights from her life to help her navigate challenges. The tools and insights discussed in the book come from the author's experiences. They have evolved based on circumstances. What works for one person may only work for one person. Readers should select what is helpful for them. The book aims to help readers recognize their inner brightness or uniqueness. When people recognize this in themselves and others, it helps build community and create change. The book discusses finding personal power, communal power, and overcoming feelings of doubt. Developing these insights and tools has taken the author years of practice and learning from mistakes. She encourages younger readers to be patient in their journey of self-discovery. Gaining self-knowledge and confidence takes time. The book was initially intended to offer companionship for people going through change and flux in life. However, the current state of the world with the pandemic, social issues, etc. means everyone is experiencing flux and uncertainty. Loss and hurt will stay with us. We must find ways to evolve even when we cannot find equilibrium. The author says life has few fixed points or guaranteed outcomes. We are constantly changing and learning. We have to keep becoming new versions of ourselves each day. The author purchased knitting needles early in the pandemic to cope with anxiety. Though knitting seemed like a small act, it helped calm her mind. The early days of the pandemic were scary and uncertain. The author checked in on loved ones, assured her daughters, and worked on initiatives to help, but it never felt like enough. Though her family was relatively lucky, the enormity of the crisis felt overwhelming. The author has spent her life staying busy and in control. She is used to setting agendas and measuring progress. The stillness of the pandemic challenged this. Knitting is in the author's DNA. The women in her family learned sewing skills out of necessity to earn money. Her great-grandmother, Mama, supported her family by doing alterations and mending. Mama would travel in the summer to sew for a wealthy family, even as it was difficult for her. The author's grandfather questioned why the wealthy family did not buy their sewing machine to spare Mama the trouble. However, they likely never even considered it. Though small, knitting became a tool for the author to settle her anxious mind in a time of uncertainty. The smallest of tools can help process the biggest of feelings. The author's mother grew up having to work hard to get by and passed down a sense of responsibility to the author. The author worked hard in her education and career but often suppressed complex thoughts and feelings to be efficient and productive. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the author's routine and usual way of coping by keeping busy. It brought up old anxieties and uncertainties she had put aside. The election of Donald Trump was also profoundly upsetting and disillusioning, making her question whether the efforts and sacrifices she and her husband had made were for nothing. She felt hopeless and depressed. The author started knitting to ease her anxiety and worry. Knitting helped shift her focus away from her churning thoughts by giving her hands an activity. The repetitive motions were calming and helped quiet her worried mind. Knitting provided an escape from her worries and a way to feel productive even when things seemed unfixable. The author was experiencing anxiety and a sense of helplessness during a difficult time. Taking up knitting provided a distraction and relief from these feelings. The repetitive knitting helped rearrange her thoughts and provide a new perspective. Knitting allowed the author to see past the overwhelming issues of the moment and reconnect with hope and faith in people's ability to adapt and make a change. The quiet, focused action of knitting helped the author gain clarity and find the words for a vital speech she had to give. The author recommends finding small, active pursuits like knitting to temporarily escape from feelings of being overwhelmed by huge, unsolvable problems. Engaging your hands and mind in a simple, repetitive task can provide a sense of accomplishment and completion, even as the more significant issues remain unresolved. Allowing yourself these small respites can help sustain the ability to continue tackling the more significant challenges. The author met with teenagers from disadvantaged neighborhoods in Chicago who had struggled during the pandemic. Though facing many difficulties, a young woman named Diana was determined to complete her education despite the pounding down of challenges. Like the author, Diana seemed to go back and forth between feeling overwhelmed and being able to overcome, ultimately acknowledging that the truth was somewhere in between. The author recognized her own experience in Diana's. Overall, the key message is that focusing on small, manageable acts can provide relief and respite when facing larger, seemingly insurmountable problems. Finding ways to temporarily diversion your mind from huge anxieties and difficulties can help sustain the perseverance and clarity of thought needed to continue progress on more significant issues. Small accomplishments can counterbalance feelings of being overwhelmed. Feeling overwhelmed is common and depends on many factors, including circumstances, mood, attitude, and experiences of systemic oppression. Many people hide their vulnerabilities and struggles to seem strong. However, privately, people oscillate between feeling capable and feeling overwhelmed. Young people today often feel much pressure to fix societal problems and feel guilty that they cannot do more. This is an immense burden to carry and it is normal for it to sometimes feel too much. It is common for people, especially youth, to want to make a difference and change the world. However, these ambitions can be overwhelming and negatively impact mental health. It is essential to pace yourself, practice self-care, and break down big goals into manageable steps. Happier, mentally healthier people can better take action on societal issues. So, prioritizing wellness and celebrating small wins helps motivate more significant change. The author uses the metaphor of three sisters gardening, where different plants support each other, to show how we need a balance of small and big in our lives. We must identify what feeds, protects, and keeps us balanced. Recognizing internal red flags about imbalance helps us address issues before they become overwhelming. Many minor fixes, like exercise, sleep, writing, or talking to others, can help restore balance and motivation. The key is recognizing when you need them and avoiding avoidance. Feeling overwhelmed is common, but building healthier responses is possible. Prioritizing wellness, balance, self-care and breaking down big goals help reignite motivation and sustain ambition. Some of the best strategies are recognizing red flags, using simple fixes, and seeking help when needed. The author describes how she and her brother reacted differently to scary movies and stories as a child. Her brother seemed largely unaffected and even enjoyed them, while she felt deep fear. Over time, though, she saw the value in facing fear and learning to be comfortably afraid. The author acknowledges her relatively safe and stable upbringing, though she notes that she still wrestles with fear and anxiety as a Black woman and public figure. She says most of her fears are abstract, like worry over embarrassment or rejection, though recognizes that feelings of jeopardy are part of the human experience for all. She argues that we are constantly sorting real threats from imagined ones, especially in a media landscape that often stokes fear. To counter fear, the author has found a few strategies helpful: gaining perspective, like her brother, learning to see fear-inducing things through a wider lens, with more context. This allows enjoying a thrill without being hijacked by terror. Starting small, facing fear in small, manageable ways helps build courage and skills to handle more significant challenges. Even small acts of bravery matter and build on each other. Finding purpose, having a sense of purpose helps overcome fear. Doing things for others gets your mind off yourself and gives motivation. Laughter is powerful for shifting mood and countering fear. Even in difficult times, finding moments of joy and humor is essential. Self-soothing, identifying and using tools that help calm and steady yourself, things like music, exercise, creativity, community, faith practices, etc. Small acts of balance and self-care accumulate. The message is that fear is an inextricable part of life, but we have agency in how we respond to it. With practice and the right strategies, we can become more skillfully afraid. We can move from feeling overwhelmed to feeling capable, by laying down small acts of courage, compassion, and progress. Growth happens gradually, in increments. However, remarkable things become possible. The author argues that fear is an innate human reaction to unfamiliar and unpredictable situations. While fear can be rational and help keep us safe, it can also be irrational and limit our growth. The key is learning how to evaluate fear and respond to it wisely. The author shares a childhood memory of being afraid to go on stage during a holiday play because of a stuffed turtle prop. Her aunt gave her the choice to either confront her fear and perform or opt out. The author chose to perform and in doing so, discovered that the turtle was not threatening. This experience taught her that fear often arises from disorder and unfamiliarity, and confronting fear allows us to see things rationally. As adults, we continue facing situations that produce fear and anxiety. Our responses are more complex but often involve avoidance, which limits opportunity and growth. The author argues that we should pause to examine the root causes of our fear and determine whether we are in actual danger or simply facing uncertainty. Avoiding fear means making our world small, while confronting fear allows us to expand and progress. The key message is that fear should guide us but not paralyze us. By learning to operate in the presence of fear, we can think, stay balanced, and open ourselves to new experiences. The author refers to this as becoming comfortably afraid, accepting fear but not being limited by it. How we respond to fear shapes our lives and determines our ability to grow. The passage discusses Michelle Obama's fear and hesitation when Barack first told her he wanted to run for president. She did not like political life and wanted to maintain stability for her family. However, she knew she owed Barack an honest consideration of the choice. As she thought about it, she realized her fear stemmed from a dislike of change and uncertainty. She did not want disruption to their settled life. However, she reminded herself that they had navigated many changes and uncertainties in their personal lives and careers. They had proven themselves adaptable. She did not want to live with the regret of saying no and altering the course of history because of her fear. She also felt bound by the legacy of her grandfathers, who had lived circumscribed lives due to fear and racism. While aware of the racism they faced, she saw how their limits had become ingrained in them. Her grandfather Dandy's fear was evident when he struggled to drive her to an appointment outside his neighborhood. Although her parents were cautious, they had seen the impact of limits and wanted more for their children. They worked to help Michelle and her brother break the cycle of fear and expand their sphere of comfort. They taught them to decode their fears, as her father did during her childhood fear of thunderstorms. The passage shows how fear of change and newness, often passed down through generations, can limit lives and worldviews. Overcoming fear and expanding one's comfort zone, as Michelle's family did, allows for growth and opportunity. By facing her fear, Michelle opened her life to extraordinary experiences. Here's a summary of the passage. As a child, the author was afraid of thunderstorms and her father helped reassure her using facts and information. Her mother led by example and showed competence in scary situations. The author's parents taught her and her brother to overcome fear and gain competence. They encouraged the kids to do things independently to build independence and confidence. The author has tried to apply these lessons as a parent. She has to resist the urge to protect her daughters from everything scary and instead allow them to gain independence and competence. She watches them do things independently even though it makes her nervous. Her parents showed her that protecting children from fear also prevents them from gaining competence. Launching Barack Obama's presidential campaign in 2007 felt like being shot into the air on a motorcycle. It was a dizzying experience with no certainty. The author had to battle her fearful mind which was convinced nothing would work out. She had to coach herself not to listen to doubts and fears or she would lose faith and cause the whole effort to crash. Doubt comes from within, and fear tries to prevent risk-taking and achievement. Overcoming fear involves overcoming part of yourself. Practice and experience make it easier. Lin-Manuel Miranda described performance anxiety as rocket fuel that can either power or blow up the ship. When he first performed at the White House in 2009, he was visibly nervous about performing a new song that would become the opening number of Hamilton. His fearful mind told him the performance could fail and he might have to abandon the project. However, he pushed through the fear and the performance was a success, showing that fearful thoughts are not reality. Fear is often a liar. The key lessons are: fear should not stop progress or achievement. Fear can be overcome with competence, practice, and experience, and doubt and fearful thoughts come from within but should not be believed or allowed to override dreams and opportunities. Fear must be parsed and managed, not allowed to rule. The author has a friend named Ron who greets himself warmly in the mirror every morning. He says, "Hey, buddy," to his reflection. Ron's wife Matris told the author about this habit. She says hearing Ron greet himself is the best way to wake up. Ron is a charismatic, successful man who exudes confidence and warmth. His morning greeting shows that he begins each day with kindness toward himself. Many people, especially women, find it hard to approach the mirror with ease. We are often harshly self-critical. We have absorbed negative messages about our appearance that make us feel unworthy. The author herself struggles with negative self-appraisal in the mirror, cataloging her flaws and imperfections. This makes her feel divided and bad. Ron's habit shows the possibility of starting kind, choosing to see your whole self with warmth and greet yourself with compassion, rather than self-loathing. This is an excellent mindset to start the day. Ron's greeting is simple but powerful. It shows self-acceptance and the choice to be kind to himself. This mindset allows him to launch into each day with confidence and poise. The key message is that we can benefit from emulating Ron's approach, starting each day with self-compassion and kindness rather than harsh self-judgment. Greeting yourself warmly in the mirror is a simple but transformative habit. The author describes how Ron, a character in one of Brené Brown's books, greets himself in the mirror each morning by saying, "Hey, buddy." This is a simple message of self-compassion and approval. The author says this type of simple greeting and validation is something many people crave from others but have trouble giving themselves. She suggests more people could benefit from greeting themselves daily with warmth and kindness. The author shares a story from Nobel Prize-winning author Toni Morrison, who said she learned as a parent to greet her children with a lit-up, glad face instead of a critical one. This showed them they were enough and gave them a sense of self-worth they could carry with them. The author says that messages of gladness and approval are rare when we receive them, but they stay with us. She shares how children instinctively crave warmth, tenderness, and gladness. When she met with kids at the White House, they wanted hugs, smiles, and time with her. The author says real growth starts with how gladly you can see yourself. She suggests consciously replacing self-critical thoughts with kinder ones, even with something as simple as greeting yourself in the morning with gratitude for a new day. The bar for self-compassion is low but powerful. Overall, the key message is that greeting yourself and others with simple warmth, gladness and approval can be profoundly meaningful in building a sense of self-worth and poise. Though these messages are rare, they matter profoundly and are worth cultivating. Growth begins with compassion for yourself. The author felt out of place as a child due to her height. She was always relegated to the back of lines and groups because she was the tallest. This made her feel self-conscious and like she did not belong. Though her height served her brother well in sports and gained respect, as a girl, she did not know how to utilize it and felt it was more of a burden. After watching Nadia Comaneci in the 1976 Olympics, the author became inspired and decided she wanted to be a gymnast. She began taking acrobatics classes to work towards this goal. However, she soon realized she was not built for gymnastics. Her height and build made skills and techniques difficult and awkward. She could not keep up with the other girls and became embarrassed and demoralized. By age 13, she gave up her goal of becoming a gymnast. The author acknowledges that she was not meant to be a gymnast. Her body type was wrong for the sport, and her family could not afford the necessary equipment and training. Though she was strong, motivated, and inspired by Nadia, gymnastics was impossible. Generally, strength and power were not traits encouraged or celebrated in girls. The author needed to learn how to utilize her strength or find other role models to follow. She felt bottled up with no outlets, partly due to a lack of opportunities for girls in sports. In summary, the author's experience shows how young girls can struggle when they do not fit prescribed societal norms or have accessible role models and opportunities. The author's journey illuminates the importance of inclusiveness, access, and encouragement for people of all abilities, body types, backgrounds, and gender. The author discusses feeling out of place as a tall black girl growing up in the 1970s and 80s. Few role models in media and sports looked like her. She felt self-conscious about her height and race, and envied girls who could blend in more easily. As a teen, she agonized over finding fit clothes and constantly worried about how others perceived her. She now recognizes that this was a normal part of development for many teens, but the feeling of not belonging persisted. As an adult, she worries about how others see her race and gender in various situations. The author discusses friends who grew up in affluent white suburbs as the only black students in their schools and communities. Their parents moved there for the opportunity, but the children faced isolation. For example, the author's friend Andrea grew up wealthy but stood out in her nearly all-white town. From an early age, Andrea noticed the small hesitations in how people interacted with her family in public and realized her blackness made some uncomfortable. Andrea's parents gave her many advantages, but she still lacked a sense of belonging. The author implies that for many, fitting in and being authentic can remain a struggle, especially when your identity falls outside social norms. However, persevering despite discomfort and judgment is necessary. The world may divide into those who must think more about how they are perceived and those who can think less, but you have no choice but to forge ahead. The author's friend Andrea grew up as the only black student in her school. This caused her to constantly feel out of place and like she did not belong, leaving emotional wounds that lasted into adulthood. The author grew up in a diverse neighborhood and did not experience being in only until college at Princeton. She felt invisible and out of place as one of the few black students. She realized many of her white peers came from homogeneous communities and had never interacted with black people. At Princeton, the author found community with other black students who shared stories of experiencing stereotyping and isolation. Though they joked about these experiences, they found it reassuring to know they were not crazy or imagining the biases. However, the author still often felt self-conscious and out of place in the broader college environment. She felt like she was viewing herself through the eyes of her white peers and felt ungrounded and unsure of herself and her identity. She likens this to W.E.B. Du Bois' concept of double consciousness. In summary, the passage explores the alienating experience of being in the minority as a black person in a predominantly white environment. The author and her friend carried emotional scars from constantly feeling out of place and like they did not belong. However, finding community with others in the same position helped mitigate these effects. The author describes growing up with a father who radiated confidence and inner peace despite facing many hardships and disadvantages in life. He taught the author that no one can make you feel bad if you feel good about yourself. The father could shrug off the unfair judgments and opposing views society held about him as a disabled black man. He focused on the love and community in his own life instead. The author learned from her father's example. She accepted her differentness, being the tallest girl, and only in her college classes, and a woman in male-dominated spaces. She realized she had to find her confidence and be comfortably afraid instead of avoiding difficult situations. Like her father, she learned that absolute steadiness comes from within, not from what others think of her. The author had to choose to reject the messages that suggested she did not belong or matter. She learned to attach better feelings to her differentness and remind herself of her self-worth. She had to rewrite the story of not mattering with her truth. This is the root of absolute confidence, which allows you to become more visible, influential, and able to create change. It takes practice to overcome the layers of scripts that suggest certain people do not fit in or matter. However, by focusing on your self-validation, you can shrink those obstacles. The key message is that true confidence and empowerment come from within, not from what others say about you. You can overcome disadvantages and judgments by rejecting negative views of yourself and replacing them with your self-truth, just as the author's father did. Real change starts from this place of inner strength and pride. The author argues that the stories and narratives prevalent in society shape how we see ourselves and what we perceive as possible. These narratives are often dominated by white, male, and wealthy figures, making it difficult for others to envision themselves in specific roles or achieving certain things. The author shares several examples from her own life and the lives of others, showing how a single dismissive comment or act of exclusion can have a lasting impact. For example, her brother was accused of stealing his bike by a police officer who could not imagine a black boy riding such a nice bike. Moreover, Stacey Abrams has always remembered being turned away from an event at the governor's mansion, though she has become a leader in Georgia. These experiences show how powerful messages of not belonging can diminish us, especially when received at a young age. However, the author argues they can also fuel a desire to prove others wrong and achieve more despite lowered expectations. She and Abrams have both persisted in accomplishing great things as a response to those who tried to limit them. The author argues that we must be aware of whose stories are told and visible in society and work to make more space for others. We also must be aware of the impact of the messages we send to others, especially young people. Feeling included and seen can shape lives as powerfully as feeling excluded and invisible. The author takes friendship seriously and sees her close friends as a source of strength, support, and joy. They help each other become their best selves. She argues that close friendships can be lifelines in a world where some are made to feel they do not belong. They provide spaces of warmth, safety, and possibility. The author places a high value on friendships and staying connected with close friends. She is an active planner of social events and outings with friends. For her, friendships provide both commitment and support. During her time as First Lady, she would organize weekends at Camp David for her close friends, initially framing them as spa weekends but eventually being more upfront that they involved intensive workouts. Though demanding, these weekends provided an opportunity to relieve stress and focus on each other. A compromise was necessary, as her friends insisted on incorporating more relaxation and indulgence. The author sees close friendships as crucial for overcoming life challenges. Her friends provided vital support during her time as a student at Princeton and as a new mother with a busy spouse. They helped share responsibilities and provided empathy and comfort. The transition to becoming First Lady was difficult and lonely, as she had to take on many new responsibilities in an unfamiliar place away from her established life. However, her close friends traveled to attend the inauguration and provided comfort, even though she did not know where they were in the crowd. Their presence was still reassuring. Despite worries about how her friendships and relationships might change after moving into the White House, the author tried to cultivate new friends to add to her circle of close friends. Most of her previous friendships had developed naturally over time based on proximity and shared experiences. However, as her circumstances changed, she had to become more intentional in forming new connections. She advises young people to move past discomfort and take risks to pursue potential new friendships, rather than worrying excessively about seeming overeager or facing rejection. The key message is that close friendships require effort and compromise but provide invaluable benefits. They help alleviate stress, share life's challenges, and provide comfort during difficult transitions. While circumstances may change, working to maintain close friendships and form new connections is essential. Discomfort should not deter reaching out to pursue meaningful relationships. According to surveys, many Americans feel lonely and lack close friends. People reported missing a sense of belonging and connection even before the pandemic. The former Surgeon General traveled the country and found that people of all backgrounds reported feeling lonely. There is a stigma around admitting loneliness, but making genuine connections with others can help. Real friendships involve removing filters, sharing true feelings, and accepting each other's messiness. The author wonders if culture has lost some skills around friendship. Children today often have highly scheduled lives and lack unstructured social situations to develop social skills. Learning to navigate challenges and lack of rewards helps build life skills. Making friends requires taking risks, showing vulnerability, and accepting possible rejection. Extending curiosity to others and finding the light in them can build connections. The story of the author's friendship with Danielle illustrates how friendship can form unexpectedly. Although they came from very different circumstances, they connected over their daughter's new friendship. The author appreciated that Danielle seemed uninterested in her status and fame. Although visiting the White House was intimidating, their shared experience as parents helped them bond. The author broke protocol to greet Danielle in person at the end of a playdate, taking a risk to make a human connection. Despite the glamour of their surroundings, she tried to build realness and maintain her version of normal. Their unexpected meeting and shared experience overcame their differences. The key message is that while finding belonging can be challenging, putting in the effort to genuinely connect with others by taking risks, showing interest, and finding common ground can help build meaningful friendships. Maintaining a sense of normalcy and human connection is vital despite surface differences or intimidating circumstances. Making friends requires openness, vulnerability, and a willingness to look past filters or facades to find the natural person within. The First Lady describes meeting a new friend, Danielle, whose daughter attends the same school as her daughters. She is initially cautious in getting to know Danielle due to her position, but they gradually become close friends. The First Lady believes that staying open to new relationships and fighting loneliness is essential, especially in her role. She likens developing a new friendship to slowly opening a car window. You share a little at first, then more over time as trust builds. This is how her friendship with Danielle progressed. The First Lady cites an example of the actress Tracee Ellis Ross, who described her best friend as a barnacle on her life, someone she cannot live without. The First Lady feels similarly about her friend Angela, whom she has known since college. Angela and the First Lady supported each other through many life challenges, including losing their college roommate to cancer, the First Lady's father's death, Angela's divorce, and the First Lady's infertility struggle. Angela's visits always cheer up the First Lady. The First Lady refers to close, long-term friends like Angela as part of her social convoy, essential relationships that support and help navigate life's phases. These types of close friendships are precious. Friendships and social connections significantly benefit both physical and mental health. Even small interactions with others can decrease stress, depression, and anxiety while increasing longevity and happiness. Smartphones and social media have made in-person social interaction more complex and less frequent. This can increase loneliness and disconnect us from living in the present moment with others. Putting down our phones allows us to connect authentically with people around us. The author values in-person social connection and defines her close circle of friends as her kitchen table, people she trusts, relies on, and can be herself around. Her kitchen as a child functioned as a place where she felt safe, accepted, and able to share details of her life. She aims to provide the same sense of comfort and belonging to her friends now. Mentors and intergenerational friendships are valuable. The author highlights older friends who guided their example of possibilities and younger friends who challenged her perspective and kept her learning. Friendships change over time, but quality matters most. The author suggests discerning whom you let in, ensuring you feel safe, seen, and appreciated. It is also okay to step back from complicated friendships if needed. A strong network of friends fulfills different needs. No one person can meet all your needs all the time. The best friendships celebrate each person for who they are. This means accepting what friends can offer and letting them off the hook for what they cannot. In summary, friendships require an effort but have significant benefits. You value social interaction, being present in the moment with others, and maintaining a supportive network of friends who accept you as you are, leading to greater well-being, happiness, and connection. The author has a wide range of friends with different personalities, interests, and ways of interacting. Some are adventurous and enjoy physical activities, others prefer quieter hobbies. Some are great at remembering essential dates, others provide emotional support. Over time, friends from different areas of the author's life have become close with each other. They support each other through good and bad times. The author sees them as a circle of well-wishers. The author tells her daughters that close friendships are meaningful, especially for those who feel like outsiders. Friends provide comfort, safety, and escape from daily challenges. Even presidents need close friends to provide respite from the stresses and loneliness of the job. The author organized a surprise birthday weekend for her husband at Camp David, where he could relax and have fun with old friends. Strong friendships require effort and intention. It helps to create rituals and routines to maintain them. Studies show that having friends nearby makes complex challenges seem easier to face. The author encourages young people to take the risk of making new friends. Close friends enrich your life and provide security. The author's two daughters recently became roommates, showing they have developed friendships as siblings. They are growing into independent young women but still value time with family. The key ideas are: close friendships require work but provide enormous benefits. Even outgoing, successful people need strong friendships to escape the stress and feel supported. The author values community and bringing people together. Though the author's daughters are becoming more independent, the family remains important to them. The author's daughters, Sasha and Malia, are settling into adulthood and independence as they move into their apartment. The author observes them learning practical skills of adulthood like home decorating, cooking, and cleaning through trial and error. The author reflects on becoming an adult and gaining independence. She says most people approximate their way into maturity by experimenting and practicing different living methods until they figure out what works. Her daughters are going through this process of practicing, learning, and refining who they want to become. The author hopes her daughters take time to explore relationships and commit to them when ready, rather than rushing into marriage or commitment. She wants them to become whole people, able to stand on their own before sharing their life with a partner. She hopes they learn relationship skills through experience. The author says her 30-year marriage to Barack is not perfect but built on genuine love and commitment. They accept each other's differences and find solace in the certainty that they will stay together despite challenges. Their relationship is their shared home. The author says she frequently gets asked for relationship advice. She says a strong relationship is built on a commitment to enduring despite differences, annoyances, and hard times. Certainty in a partner's commitment is hard to find but invaluable. People ask her how they struggle to find and build that kind of enduring commitment and certainty. That is a high-level summary of the key points around independence in adulthood, learning relationship skills through experience, building a lasting marriage and home through commitment, and finding certainty in relationships. Please let me know if you want me to clarify or expand on any summary part. The author receives many questions from people struggling with relationships and life decisions around marriage and family. She does not have definitive answers or advice for people's situations. Finding a lasting and loving relationship is a different journey for each person. It involves learning, messing up, revising expectations, and growth over time. Many people follow poor advice or mimic unhealthy relationships they grew up around. A good relationship is often imperfect but commits to facing challenges together. The author thought marriage would be an exciting fantasy but learned it is rarely glamorous or perfect. Her parents had a companionable and happy marriage despite regular disagreements, and her mother sometimes imagined leaving. They chose to commit to each other through challenges. The author's mother would imagine a different life each spring but then realize any other partner would also be imperfect and choose to recommit to her marriage. A good relationship requires continuous choice and work. It involves accepting ups and downs, imperfections, and a balance that is constantly shifting. Actual love happens in that imperfect in-between space, not a fantasy. The key to a lasting relationship is entering with realistic expectations, willingness to work, humility, and commitment to choosing your partner again and again despite challenges. There is no perfect 50-50 balance, just a continuous recalibration. A good relationship is dynamic, changing, and a constant work in progress. Relationships require effort, compromise, and sacrifice from both partners. Things are rarely fair or equal, and everyone will have ups and downs. However, strong relationships are built on navigating challenges together and taking turns supporting each other. Choosing a life partner means accepting their flaws and imperfections and committing to work through difficulties with empathy and compassion. For a relationship to last long-term, both partners must be willing to create latitude and show forbearance for the other. The key to a successful partnership is finding someone who will work with you rather than for you. Each partner should contribute in all areas rather than playing strictly defined roles. Like a winning basketball team, partners should have a range of complementary skills and be able to adapt to fill different needs. Michelle Obama has tried to show the reality of relationships by discussing the challenges in her marriage. While she and Barack Obama have a strong partnership, they have also endured difficult periods and needed counseling. Genuine relationships require work, and expecting any partnership to be perfect is unrealistic. The story of Carissa shows how avoiding emotional intimacy and honest discussions about commitment in favor of keeping it casual is unsustainable. Carissa held back from showing her authentic self or needs in the relationship out of fear of seeming high maintenance. However, real intimacy can only develop by opening up, facing challenges, and having honest conversations about what both partners want. Superficial interactions provide only temporary satisfaction. Ultimately, Carissa's lack of risk and vulnerability prevented the relationship from growing into something more meaningful. Barack invited Michelle to spend Christmas with him in Hawaii, where he grew up. She eagerly accepted the invitation, imagining an idyllic tropical holiday and a chance to deepen their new relationship. When Michelle arrived in Honolulu, she was struck by how urban and populated it was, not matching her fantasy of a secluded tropical paradise. Barack's grandparents' apartment building was a modest high-rise. Michelle met Barack's mother, grandparents, and younger sister Maya. They called Barack Bar for short. Michelle could see that Barack's upbringing and circumstances were as modest as her own. They stayed in Maya's friend's apartment and visited Barack's grandparents daily. The apartment was small and decorated with Indonesian batik fabrics and Midwestern furnishings. They ate tuna sandwiches and pickles for meals, reminiscent of Michelle's upbringing. In summary, Michelle discovered that both Barack's background and Honolulu were more ordinary and urban than she had envisioned. However, she enjoyed deepening her connection with Barack's family and learning more about the man she fell in love with. Here's a summary of the passage. The author discusses the differences between her and Barack Obama's family during their trip to Hawaii. Her family is closely knit and lives within proximity to each other in Chicago. Due to the distance, Barack's family is spread out across different places but comes together for intense visits. The author has to get used to Barack's family's open displays of affection and declarations of love, which contrasts with her family's more reserved style of showing they care. She realizes Barack's expressiveness comes from relying on words and physical affection during their short visits. The author and Barack have different approaches to resolving conflicts and addressing relationship issues stemming from their upbringing. Barack prefers to address problems immediately, while the author needs more time and space. They have learned to adapt to each other's styles over time. The author wishes for a more fantasy-like vacation experience in Hawaii with Barack rather than spending most of their time with his family. However, She appreciates the time with Barack's family and sees his devotion to them. She realizes these types of moments are more meaningful than an idyllic vacation. Overall, the passage highlights how the author gains insight into Barack and his character through experiencing what a commitment to family means to him during their trip to Hawaii. Although different from her upbringing, she understands and values this part of his identity. Michelle Obama's mother, Marion Robinson, moved into the White House with the Obamas when Barack became president to help care for Sasha and Malia. The media became interested in Marion and dubbed her First Granny. However, Marion shuns publicity and believes she and her family are ordinary. She thinks all children have potential, regardless of their circumstances. Now 85, Marion is straightforward, treats everyone equally, and speaks honestly. As the Obamas transitioned to the White House, she candidly told reporters she did not want to move from Chicago but did so because Michelle begged her to help with the girls. Marion believes the White House felt like a museum, not a home. She prefers her own home and independence. However, she moved for the sake of her grandchildren, whom she has always helped care for during the Obamas' busy times. Marion provides stability and steadies the Obama family. Michelle sees her as the rock of the family. Overall, the summary shows Marion Robinson as a plain-spoken, down-to-earth woman devoted to her family. Despite her preferences, she sacrificed to support them during a significant life transition. Her honest and unpretentious nature won public affection. She believes all people are equal and children deserve love and support to develop their potential. Michelle Obama's mother, Marion Robinson, reluctantly moved into the White House to help care for her granddaughters, Sasha and Malia, when the Obamas first became the first family. Although Marion did not want the spotlight and maintained her independence, she became popular with the White House staff, who appreciated her warmth and groundedness. She focused on supporting her family while avoiding the publicity and drama that came with Barack's position. As teenagers, Sasha and Malia tested some limits and sometimes got into typical teenage trouble. These incidents would trigger feelings of self-doubt, guilt, and fear of failure in Michelle as a mother. She would question whether she and Barack had made the right parenting choices and whether life in the White House negatively impacted their daughters. Michelle acknowledges that these worries and feelings of not enoughness occurred daily among mothers and parents. Images of perfect parenting in families and media and culture feed into self-scrutiny and guilt. The responsibilities of parenting can feel overwhelming and all-consuming. However, Michelle found solace in turning to her mother, Marion, who provided a calm and supportive perspective. Marion helped alleviate Michelle's anxieties and fears about her perceived mistakes or failures as a parent. Her mother's presence was a secret weapon in helping Michelle overcome self-doubt and maintain confidence in her role as a mother. Overall, Michelle expresses that while parenting is rewarding, it can also drive you nuts with worry and fear. However, the support of her mother helped make her a more confident and less self-critical parent. The author's mother has been a constant source of support and wisdom throughout her and her daughters' lives. She provides perspective and helps alleviate anxieties and worries. She believes in presuming the best in children and giving them trust and high expectations. The author's mother gives brief but reassuring pep talks. She says things like those girls are all right and they are just trying to learn life to help the author stay calm. She has taught the author how to be a less anxious, guilt-ridden parent. One of the lessons the author's mother taught was to teach kids to wake themselves up and be self-sufficient. When the author was young, her mother gave her an alarm clock and showed her how to use it, then let her handle waking herself up. This taught the author independence and agency over her own life. Another lesson was that parenting is not about the parent but about preparing the child to become independent. The author's mother tried to make herself as unnecessary in her children's lives as possible so they could handle things themselves. She asked herself what the minimum was that she could do for them. She wanted to raise independent adults, not dependent babies. The author's parents taught the importance of self-sufficiency, appreciating what you have, and not always wanting more. They had to teach their children skills and independence because they could not provide them with shortcuts or privileges. They let their children struggle, make mistakes, and figure things out themselves so they can build confidence and independence. The author's mother remained involved in their lives but did not fight their battles for them or let their failures or successes dictate her happiness and self-worth. She loved them regardless of their achievements. She helped them process disappointments but then returned to her own life. She taught them social skills so they could determine who they wanted in their lives. In summary, the author's mother was a source of wisdom, support, and independence. She taught her children self-sufficiency by giving them responsibilities from an early age and letting them make their own mistakes, all to raise independent and capable adults. The author's mother was very involved in her children's lives and education. She would volunteer at their school to understand their daily problems. When the author would come home upset about something at school, her mother would listen and then ask if she needed help addressing it. Most of the time, the author would realize she could handle it herself. Her mother taught her to work through problems independently by giving her space to vent and think it over. The author's mother grew up in a strict household where children were to be seen and not heard. She learned from observing the family dynamics that she wanted to raise her children differently. The author and her brother were encouraged to speak freely and voice their opinions in her home. They were allowed to express a full range of emotions. Her mother focused on what mattered, her children's well-being, rather than material objects. The author took a similar approach with her daughters. She wanted them to feel free to be themselves at home. While there were basic rules and values she and her husband instilled, they tailored their parenting to each daughter's individual needs and strengths. They learned quickly that parenting often comes down to dealing with whatever situations arise, despite the best plans and preparation. The most important thing is adapting to the child you have rather than sticking to a predetermined approach. In summary, the key lessons from the stories are focus on what matters rather than appearances, give children space to work through problems on their own while providing support, encourage children to speak freely and be themselves, and adapt your parenting approach to each child's unique needs. Good parenting comes from the heart more than any prescribed philosophy. Parenting is difficult and often feels out of our control. Children have agendas and curiosity to explore the world and will test boundaries and break things. The author shares a story of losing her patience with her daughters one evening. She yelled at them to go to bed, but they ignored her. In frustration, she told them she was quitting as their mother. Her older daughter was upset, but her younger daughter was happy to be left alone. The author realized her daughters had different needs and temperaments, and she had to adapt her parenting to each child. The author learned that the most important things she could give her children were the opportunity to be heard, the ability to make good decisions, and the consistency of her love and support. She saw parenting as an art that requires patience, perspective, and precision. Although children will become who they are meant to be and learn life's lessons in their way, the home should be where they feel liked and accepted. The author was lucky to grow up in a home filled with gladness, which helped her seek out supportive relationships and build a happy home for her children. Finding or building a place of gladness as an adult is essential for those without a happy childhood home. It may require forming a chosen family, setting healthy boundaries, and making bold life changes. The author's mother helped make the White House feel like a home, providing solace, acceptance, and support. Home is where we can light up for others as we have been lit up. In summary, parenting is difficult, but providing children a place of gladness and acceptance is one of the most valuable things we can do. Creating a place of gladness as an adult is empowering for those without a happy home in childhood. Home is where we feel supported in lighting up the lives of others. The author discusses how profiles of successful women often make it seem like they do it all effortlessly on their own, but in reality, most people rely on teams of assistants and helpers behind the scenes. The author herself has been helped in her career by many capable assistants, like Kristen Jarvis, Kristen Jones, Melissa Winter, and China Clayton. China, in particular, became very close with the author, traveling and working with her constantly for years. However, China had never told the author anything about her father or family. After about a year of working together outside the White House, China requested a formal meeting with the author, making her nervous that China would quit. In the meeting, China revealed that her father had been in prison since she was 3 years old and was released when she was 13. She had worried this might be a problem for her job and had kept it hidden for fear of judgment. The author was relieved to find out China was not quitting. She told China she was glad to know about her family history, as it only increased her respect for China and the difficulties she had overcome. China felt unburdened by finally sharing her story. The experience showed the author how even capable and resilient people could feel like frauds due to circumstances outside their control. However, those circumstances often shape people in meaningful ways. China had a difficult upbringing with a determined single mother who worked nights to support her. Though her mother was proud of her success, this also put added pressure on China. China was hesitant to share details of her personal life at work, fearing judgment and worrying she was an imposter. However, opening up to the author helped her feel more comfortable sharing her story with others. Sharing one's vulnerabilities can help relieve stress from hiding parts of oneself and find self-worth. Though risky, it helps create connections and find common ground with others. After China shared her story on a podcast, she received an outpouring of support from others with similar experiences. Her story gave them hope and helped them feel less alone. People sharing perceived weaknesses or imperfections often reveal their inner strength and resilience. For example, the author cites Amanda Gorman, the young poet who spoke at Biden's inauguration after the Capitol riot. Her words brought hope and healing. The Capitol riot shocked the author, showing how divisive and dangerous politics had become. However, Gorman's poem at the inauguration restored her faith in unity and democracy. In summary, the author argues that, though risky, sharing one's struggles and vulnerabilities can build connections, inspire others, and reveal inner strength. China's story and Gorman's poem exemplify how this can bring hope and healing. The author discusses observing government workers who remain dedicated to serving the public good despite leadership changes. She notes that while the government is imperfect, the orderly transfer of power and commitment to democratic ideals keeps the U.S. free. After the January 6 attack on the Capitol, the author felt fearful about threats of further violence leading up to the inauguration. However, she says there was a choice between fear and faith in democracy. She attended the inauguration to support the democratic process, as she had done for previous presidents she disagreed with. At the inauguration, the author sensed mixed emotions in the crowd but felt hopeful after Amanda Gorman read her poem emphasizing unity, healing, and progress. Given her history of struggling with a speech impediment, the author was in awe of Gorman's performance. Gorman viewed her impediment as giving her the strength to work hard to overcome challenges. Her success was a lifetime in the making and resulted from perseverance and community support. The author sees Gorman as an inspiration and notes that many successful people use perceived disadvantages or despite as motivation. They do not ignore obstacles but work steadily to overcome them, which builds their confidence and power. The author cites examples like comedian Ali Wong, who embraces her unique attributes and refuses to see them as limits. The key is accepting and revealing one's whole, complex self. Doing so can empower individuals and promote understanding between groups. The author expresses hope in the human ability to turn weaknesses into strengths and progress toward ideals. The author encourages the reader not to give up in the face of obstacles and challenges. However, she acknowledges that overcoming obstacles is difficult and unfair work disproportionately affects marginalized groups. She shares stories of her experiences facing double standards and disproportionate burdens as a woman of color. The author argues that while the work is hard, the skills and strength gained from overcoming obstacles are invaluable. She tells the story of Mindy Kaling, a woman of color who faced doubt and discrimination early in her career as a diversity hire. However, Kaling overcame this by working hard and embracing her identity. She gained invaluable experience and ultimately succeeded, creating more opportunities for women of color. The author says we can discover connection and community by honestly sharing our stories. She shares her own experience publishing her memoir, Becoming, and finding connection with readers over shared experiences of vulnerability, loss, love, and life's unpredictability. Opening up her vault and sharing parts of herself that were more personal and less guarded, she found community in unexpected places. In summary, the key arguments and points in the passage are: overcoming obstacles is complex, often unfair work that disproportionately burdens marginalized groups. However, the skills and strength gained are invaluable. Success stories of marginalized groups overcoming discrimination and doubt, like Mindy Kaling's, are essential and can help create opportunities for others. By sharing our personal stories honestly, we can find unexpected community and connection over shared experiences of life's challenges and unpredictability. Michelle Obama learned to thoroughly prepare and rehearse for major speeches to help mitigate nerves and feel in control. At the 2008 DNC, one of the teleprompters went out right before her speech, and the crowd was waving signs that blocked her view of the confidence monitor. She had to adapt on the fly. Michelle Obama sees preparedness and adaptability as paradoxically linked. Being well prepared helps her feel calm and in control during stressful situations. However, one also needs to be able to adapt when the unexpected happens. Thorough preparation and rehearsal are like armor for Michelle Obama. It helps make the ground feel more solid under her feet during difficult circumstances. Her brother Craig used to conduct regular fire drills for their family to prepare them for adapting in a crisis. These drills helped instill the value of preparation and the ability to adapt. The key lessons are: 1. Preparation and adaptability go hand in hand. 2. Preparation provides a sense of control and calm. 3. The ability to adapt is necessary when faced with unexpected challenges. And 4. Practicing adaptation through preparation exercises like fire drills can help build this skill. The author's father, Craig, taught his family the importance of preparedness for difficult situations. He made them practice fire drills and memorize escape routes so they would know how to respond in an emergency without panicking. This lesson of preparedness and avoiding panic has stayed with the author. She gave her first major speech at a conference in Denver when she was 16. Although facing technical difficulties and nerves, She delivered her speech confidently because she had thoroughly prepared and practiced it. From an early age, the author aimed to achieve a lot in life, even though she faced low expectations as a black girl from a working-class community. She knew these low expectations but was determined to push past them. She saw success as necessary for opportunity and advancement. The path to success and achieving one's dreams inevitably becomes difficult. One must work hard while maintaining one's health, time, energy, and spirit. It requires finding the right balance between protecting one's dreams and remaining open to growth. The author met a young woman named Tyne who worked in book publishing. Tyne said one of the stories that stuck with her from the author's previous book was about the author instinctively hugging Queen Elizabeth II, causing controversy. Tyne related to the feeling of not belonging in predominantly white spaces. The author says that the sense of being an outsider stays with you even when you gain access to privileged places. Many have to code switch by changing their behavior to fit in. The author learned from an early age to code switch to navigate different environments, adjusting how she spoke to be accepted in her neighborhood or school. However, doing so requires vigilance and can be exhausting. Authenticity gets lost, and one's sense of self becomes fragmented. The author aims to encourage young people to bring their whole selves into any space. The author describes using code switching or adapting her speech and behavior to different environments as a survival mechanism. She learned from an early age to adjust how she communicated to connect with people across lines of race, gender, and class. While code switching can be draining, it has allowed her and other marginalized groups to access more opportunities. However, it also raises questions about inclusivity and why the onus is on individuals to change rather than workplaces and society. The author's friend Tyne, a black woman, struggles with feeling like an outsider at her workplace and questions how much she should conform to majority norms versus being her authentic self. The deciding whether to hug the Queen metaphor captures this tension. The author and her friends have grappled with similar questions about whose rules to follow, how guarded or assertive to be, and how much of themselves to sacrifice for career advancement. Early in her career, the author worked at a law firm where the few female partners had the rugged bearing of pioneers. They had overcome immense obstacles to achieve their positions but felt they constantly had to prove themselves. They assessed whether the author and other young women had the commitment and skills to succeed without damaging the standing of women in the firm. Though the author admired these women, she did not envy their lives and sacrifices. However, their trailblazing allowed her generation more choice and freedom. While it is easy to criticize the compromises and limitations of the older generation, it is essential to consider the context they faced. Today's opportunities for women and marginalized groups are primarily thanks to the work and sacrifices of pioneers who had to wear more armor to overcome barriers. The author ultimately left law to find workplaces with a different culture, but she gained valuable lessons from the senior women in the firm about managing challenges and effecting change. Their mentorship helped prepare her for working in the White House. The author highlights how marginalized groups have long used code switching and other survival strategies to access opportunities, though at a cost. She expresses gratitude for the pioneers who helped pave the way, allowing younger generations more freedom and choice, even as she acknowledges the limitations and sacrifices of the time. The tensions around conformity versus authenticity and changing oneself versus one's environment remain complex but essential. The author found that nearly everyone wears some degree of armor in their professional lives to protect themselves. However, too much armor can be exhausting and prevent authentic relationships and progress. As a double minority, a black woman, in the role of First Lady, the author had to be extremely careful and strategic. To prepare, the author studied Laura Bush's schedule and initially did everything the previous First Lady had done. The author wanted to prove she was capable of the responsibilities and earn acceptance, especially as the first black First Lady. However, the role came with many unwritten expectations and traditions, like carrying a specific designer handbag or wearing a particular designer's clothing. While the author did not always follow these expectations, she was very judicious in her choices due to the scrutiny and warnings she faced. The author felt an immense amount of pressure in her role. Her every move, word, and initiative was carefully chosen, knowing that any perceived misstep could damage her husband's presidency and political standing. She felt responsible for her image and her husband's success, as his team made it clear the two were tied together. The author also felt the weight of paving the way for future candidates of color. So, while armor was necessary for the job, too much could be stifling. The author had to strategically choose when to follow tradition and when to forge her path. In summary, the passage highlights the challenges of navigating a high-profile, historic role as a minority. The author had to use her judgment to balance meeting expectations with being her authentic self, all while facing immense pressure and scrutiny. Her experiences provide insight into the complex dynamics of race, power, and progress. The author received criticism and backlash as First Lady, especially when she started advocating for policy changes around nutrition and obesity. She was portrayed as an angry black woman, which led to her words and actions being misinterpreted and twisted. The stereotype of the angry black woman made her feel unseen and unheard. She realized there were traps everywhere, and anything she did could be seen as overstepping. If she addressed the stereotypes directly, it often led to more criticism. The author adopted the motto "When they go low, we go high" to handle difficult situations with integrity. For her and her family, it means telling the truth, doing your best by others, keeping perspective, and staying tough. It is a way to pause and respond thoughtfully instead of reactively. However, mottos are easy to repeat but hard to implement. People often ask the author how to actually go high, given the state of the world and constant injustices. She answers that going high means committing to integrity and following through with action. It is not about complacency or waiting around. The key is not getting distracted by things outside your control. Focus on what you can influence and do so with compassion and care. Lift others with kindness and empathy. Moreover, when tested, consider the long game, how your actions will be viewed years later. The challenges we face require perseverance and determination to do good. Going high is a choice and a practice, not a feeling. It requires conscious effort in each new moment. However, it is the only natural path forward if we want to make progress together. The notion of going high is not about accepting oppression or injustice. It is about effectively fighting against problems and sustaining the fight without burning out. Some see going high as an ineffective compromise that conforms to rules rather than challenges them. Michelle Obama understands this perception but says going high is not about being unbothered by injustice. When she first said going high at the 2016 DNC, she was angry about Republican bigotry and efforts to undermine Obama's work. However, she knew her power was channeling her hurt and rage into action, not just expressing raw emotion. Going high means converting abstract feelings into solutions. It takes time and patience. Feeling anger is okay, but emotions alone do not solve problems. Unchecked emotions can misguide you. It would help if you did constructive work with them. For Michelle Obama, going high means doing what it takes to make your work count, adapting to changes, and using various tools. It is a lifetime commitment to show others how to live with decency. Though hard work, it requires ignoring doubters and cynics. Freedom requires constant action, not rest. Today, outrage spreads quickly, but we must channel it into discipline and work, not just noise. We risk mistaking likes and shares for real action and change. We must ask whether we are reacting or responding, impulsive or concrete. Writing helps Michelle Obama go high by moving through emotions to shape them into something useful. Speaking her thoughts also helps her test and refine them into higher truths. Her initial thoughts are just starting points. The revision process helps her find purpose. Her 2008 and 2016 convention speeches show her moving from raw feelings into purposeful messages. Even facing dangerous turbulence en route to her 2016 speech, she focused on giving the message she had prepared. Michelle Obama gave a speech at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia in 2016. She was worried and stirred up but also felt armored by her experiences. She urged people to choose to take the high road and do the work to get out the vote. Although her speech helped popularize the phrase "when they go low, we go high," not enough people did the work. Voter turnout was low, and the election results could have been better. The problems around us are compounding, and we must work together to address them. Small actions can give us a sense of purpose and agency, even in times of flux. It is difficult to know if the times we live in are getting better or worse. There is always uncertainty, struggle, and fear. However, we also always have hope. We tell each other not to give up and to keep working. That matters. As a parent, Michelle Obama learned it is okay to say, "I do not know." She does not have all the answers. Real answers come through deeper dialogue with others. We cannot know the future, but we are not helpless. We can choose hope over fear and work to create change. We have to commit to the work required to make that change. Sometimes, going high means operating within limits and making strategic compromises to be effective. You must clear the path to walk on it and help others access it too. Creating change often requires slow, tedious, and challenging work. Young activists frequently ask how much to work within or outside systems to create change. There are no simple answers. Each generation grapples with these questions in their way. The debate continues, and the questions stay open. The passage discusses the challenges of fighting for change and justice from a marginalized societal position. The author illustrates the experiences of herself, her husband, Barack Obama, and Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. As a Black First Lady, the author had to deal with stereotypes and adapt to her role while educating others. She tried to counter stereotypes by being authentic and focusing on her goals. Justice Jackson similarly had to develop a thick skin to deal with biases as a Black woman in the law. They both emphasize choosing battles wisely, managing emotions, and keeping the long view in mind. The author sees this as a moral challenge requiring care, patience, and vigilance. Success often means making difficult choices and recognizing that progress takes time. She encourages young people in similar positions to stay focused on their goals, build mental toughness, and not get distracted or derailed by unfairness. The metaphor of going high represents this larger strategy. It means keeping the poison out and the power in, using one's limited time and energy judiciously and recognizing life as a cycle of earning, saving, and spending different resources. The anecdote about her father showing her his paycheck illustrates how this works. Even when it seems like you have a lot, you must budget it carefully based on your responsibilities and goals. The passage argues that marginalized groups must take a long view, stay determined, and not get distracted to progress against injustice, even when the path is difficult and slow. Choosing battles wisely, cultivating patience and inner strength, and keeping one's eyes on the larger goals are critical to this strategy. The author's father used to have the family budget envelopes to show how their prudent spending allowed them to live comfortably within their means. They paid for essentials like gas, rent, clothing, vacations, and savings. Though not wealthy, they were wise with money and could afford some treats. The author applied this fiscal prudence and mindfulness of resources in her role as First Lady. The author stayed fit, ate well, and prioritized sleep and time with loved ones to maintain her well-being. When stressed or upset, she processed her feelings privately, talked to her mother and friends, focused on critical issues, and said no when needed. Interacting with children grounded her and gave her perspective. Change happened slowly and quickly. Old photos show how people change and stay the same. The future is hard to imagine. Stories will be told, changes will happen, and things will be forgotten and remembered. Progress requires creativity to envision possibilities and make plans. People need to be glad for each other. The author is glad for the people she works with and who make her feel glad to be alive. Going high is a commitment to keep moving forward through hard work. It means being vigorous, faithful, humble, empathetic, truthful, and prudent while outraged. The author will keep advocating to go high as it matters. The author thanks her co-writer Sarah Corbett for her support, partnership, and work writing the book. She thanks her editors at Crown for their guidance, wisdom, support, and improving the book. She thanks others involved in publishing the book for their roles, generous support, and friendship. She appreciates her stylists, photographers, and assistants for their talents, confidence boosting, and professionalism. The author expresses gratitude for the team of women who support her work. She specifically thanks Crystal Carson, China Clayton, Marone Haile Mescal, and Alex Macieli, her team in Washington, D.C., who fuel her work with their diligence, hard work, and optimism. Melissa Winter provides leadership and helps make everything possible. Marcus Stowe, Madeline McIntosh, Nihar Malavia, and Gina Cantrell of Penguin Random House have guided the project with grace, enthusiasm, and commitment to quality. The production team at Crown Publishing, including Sally Franklin, Linnea Noel-Mueller, Elizabeth Rindfleisch, and Mark Berkey, worked diligently on the book. Additional staff at Penguin Random House who contributed to the book. Groups of young women, students, book clubs, and community groups engaged in conversations that informed the book's subject matter. Tyne Hunter, Ebony Laudel, Madhuli Kasika, and Jami Yao Wilson provided insight and thoughts that helped shape some of the core ideas in the book. Her family and kitchen table members provided love, support, and stability. In summary, the author expresses deep gratitude for the team of brilliant women and professionals who supported and guided her work in producing the book. She sees them as essential places in her life and considers them family. Here is a summary of the TED Radio Hour episode How Can Your Response to a Setback Influence Your Future? Hosted by Alex Spiegel. Kelsey Abrams, a coach of leaders in large companies, says that responses to setbacks often stem from underlying beliefs formed in childhood about our ability to handle adversity. If we believe that setbacks are permanent and that we cannot overcome them, it leads to feelings of victimization, self-pity, and helplessness. If we believe we can grow from failures and setbacks, it leads to resilience and perseverance. Abrams says many of the leaders she coaches struggle with responding to setbacks in a productive way because it is difficult to change beliefs formed in childhood. She recommends naming the narrative you are in, seeking counterexamples that challenge those beliefs, and rewriting the narrative with new experiences. Ultimately, Abrams says, how we respond to failure depends on the meaning we make of that failure. We can view setbacks as permanent and pervasive or temporary and limited. How we view setbacks shapes our future. With practice, we can better respond to failures in a way that enables growth. The Obama-Robinson Family Archive is a collection of personal photos of the Obama family, from Barack Obama's presidential campaign in 2008 through the end of his presidency in 2017. The photos show Barack and Michelle Obama with their daughters Malia and Sasha during candid private moments, special occasions, and events. The collection gives an intimate glimpse into the lives of America's first African-American first family in the White House. Michelle Obama curates the archive of the First Lady during this period. Book link click here.